bad behavior. Uh,
We're about to keep it 100 with another discussion.
Black is beautiful, baby, black is bold. Black is black, true, but black is gold.
What is the biggest setback that the Black community is currently facing in society?
I think the biggest setback that we face in society really is going to be the generational gap. It's the gap of time that white people had to be established and had to build their, their empires and build all their rules and regulations. And that time period where we were still slaves, we were still building, we weren't even allowed education, we weren't allowed to own land. And there's a lot of things that we weren't able to do that they were able to do and build up their own foundation. So I think that the biggest problem that's facing us right now is the generational gap. The fact that we have to work twice as hard to get a quarter of what they have because they've had so much time to build everything that they have right now.
I feel like the biggest setback the Black community is currently facing in society is, in comparison to other races, we were not able to build generational wealth, whether that be through historical events such as slavery or segregation. We were not put in a position to be as economically stable.
Probably the lack of education. But when I say lack of education, I feel like there's a lot of factors that go into that. How certain schools in certain neighborhoods don't get the same funding as certain schools in other neighborhoods. I feel like because of certain outside factors gang violence in that neighborhood, might steer a kid to not go to school and not seek out an education.
I think the biggest setback that blacks are facing in society is that people are seeing us and they're not, because we don't come together as one unit. I don't think they're respecting us enough. I don't think that they're, showing us the love that we deserve.
What systematic changes need to be made to overthrow oppression?
The system in general, right? If the system is based off of slavery, the system is based off a broken system, the entire system really needs to be reconstructed. And that's not as far to go as I know a lot of people will bring up obviously police and the oppression that police have on black people, especially in the U.S. It is in Canada too as well, but it's more documented within the U.S. That's what a lot of people will bring up, but it's really just everything. It's everything down to our education, our healthcare systems. Black women are 30% more likely to die in hospitals giving birth than any other race. Why is that?
When I'm thinking of a systematic change that needs to be made to overthrow oppression, I'm thinking about the justice system, because when you look at those rates of people that are getting incarcerated, they're majority Latino, Black, and Aboriginal. And I feel like there needs to be more funding going towards representation for people that really can't afford it.
I feel like black people need to seek ownership. Ownership is important because it's because when you're the ones making the decision, you have the power to put who you want in certain positions.
One of the biggest systematic changes I think that need to be made is that, the funding's in different areas. Obviously, the way funding works is depending on where you live. That's, I guess, the type of people that live there and their taxes and stuff that goes back into the school board. So if you're if you're in a poor area and everybody around you is poor, you're not getting that same amount. Whereas you're making rich areas, the funding you're getting in rich areas. So those rich schools obviously are going to produce better classrooms, better because they have better class sizes, better material that the teachers can use.
Should there be anything added to the curriculum to further educate people about Black history?
I'm going to say yes. When we think about the history and what we educate in our schools, a lot of the time we're thinking about the Canadian schools and the North American schools, right? But really everywhere that has Black people have their own rendition of Black history and slavery, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things that we do need to change from the system is every country learns their own piece of Black history, but we don't learn it as everything that happened around the globe. We here in Canada, we learn about slavery. We were slaves, and then there was segregation, and then after segregation, there's a person who invented the microwave and whatever else kind of bullshit they throw at us during Black History Month or whatever else.
We don't touch upon a lot. We go into segregation and we talk about Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X, but we don't really go into Atlantic slave trade. I don't remember talking about that at all in high school, and I remember even hearing teachers say we shouldn't talk about that event just because it's not empowering, but you still need to know and acknowledge your history, that's someone's story, and it shouldn't go untold.
I feel like in school, right, when we were studying Black history, they usually just talk about oppression, slavery, and everything that's negative. But I feel like to really be educated on Black history, we got to learn about like, our roots, like where like our ancestors come from, like, who we used to be before we lived in this like civilization as like Canada and the
Yes,
U.S.
I think they should add basically like pre-slavery, like kind of going back, teaching people about what, like in Africa, this was actually what was going on. They were building up, and the white man came and stole some people, and then slavery started, and all of those things. I think that needs to be implemented as well. I think they also need to teach Black people about, or Black kids about, systematic racism. They need to learn what that is, because you can go and ask somebody that, they have no idea what it is, right? So they need to learn the basics. They need to learn what they can do in order to help stop this oppression, help stop this movement of Black people not moving forward together.
What steps need to be taken to strengthen the Black community?
We need to be in different sectors. If we want to see a change in, let's say, the police force, or we want to see a change in the hospitals, or we want to see a change in the courtrooms that are detaining Black people, we need to become those judges. We need to become those doctors. We need to become those policemen. We really need to infiltrate those different sectors and really change it from within, become the system. Instead of changing it, we need to become the system and write our own rules, really. We need to be going to school to become doctors and be nurses, and going to school to be in the judicial systems, and going to school to be police officers. We need to be the change that needs to happen.
Support each other and stop competing against each other.
I feel like a perfect example would be like what's going on, how you have certain Black people who are speaking against like the protesting and like certain things that are going on currently. Instead of like bashing those people, I feel like we should educate them and teach them, because a lot of the time they may not be aware of certain things, but these people like have like a platform, and when they say something wrong, people are so quick to tear down that platform, like, oh, like this person's canceled. That's wrong to do, because it's like only we're canceling our own people instead of like teaching them, uplifting them so they can be better for us and set like a better
Steps that are
example.
going on now in regards to a lot of the protests, the rallies, and the things like that, because that's bringing awareness, right? So the first step, it's kind of sad that this is what it's come down to, that we have to let people be aware that we're Black, and we want to be treated as equals. Like, that to me kind of sounds ridiculous, but at the end of the day, look where we are. That's what we have to do. So I think awareness is something, I think education is something, and I think change is something that will happen eventually, but it's going to take a long time.
What do you want the world to know about the Black community?
We are just as able as any other race in any other nation. We are hardworking people. My number one thing that I would tell anybody about the Black community is, really, don't judge us by the color of our skin.
What I want the world to know about the Black community is that we're loving people, but we're tired of being generalized, that our culture is not a trend. Just like when you write a paper and you have to cite where you got the words from, if you want to use something that we have created, give us credit.
I would like to the world to know that we're really loving people who really just want peace. Like, Black people don't have like a violent nature. It's really like the circumstances that really like brought upon us. Because to keep it real, like if you look at history, like we're really like the most like forgiving, like out of like all the other races. Because of that, I feel like it's why like change has been so hard to come by, because it's almost like they don't take us as
That the
seriously.
Black community is strong. We need to build up Black Wall Street again. We need to put our people in power, and we need to work together.